And I'm also going to do a live transcript. Okay, well, let me get over here. Whoops.
What?
Share my screen.
But unmute me.
Okay, good morning, everybody. Welcome again to another edition of our task force. Glad to see you're all here this morning. I will, of course, you'll hear in just a little bit, you probably already know, that we're going to have a little bit of a different meeting this morning. Instead of the usual updates, we will have some updates, but excuse me, instead of all the regular updates that we do today, that we have two presentations to hear about. And I decided to do those because they're very timely and important issues for this task force. It's also consistent with what we talked about several weeks ago, that we wanted to do some different kinds of things with our Monday morning meetings. So having said that, I want to just quickly again, remind people, if you have not, again, I'm begging, if you have not filled out a Google form with your contact information, would really appreciate you doing that. Again, that we have good information about who's participating. And most importantly, it provides the opportunity for people, if they want to connect with you, to find out who you are and how to contact you. So again, I strongly encourage you to do that. Secondly, is just a reminder that our meetings are of course, today in the 14th and the 28th. We will not be meeting on the 21st, which is President's Day. I'm assuming many of you will be taking the day off for that. So no meeting on the 21st. Again, reminder that we have been doing our kibitzing with colleagues after this meeting. So if any of you want to stay online, we stop recording and no presentations, just discussion. Sometimes it lasts for 10 minutes, sometimes it's lasted for an hour. So it just kind of depends on you and how much you'd like to participate. But I think those who have been attending the kibitzing seem to find it to be beneficial and useful and so forth. So again, we encourage you to stay on after the official meeting is over. A couple of other things, excuse me, as you may know, that we are now in the fundraising stage, looking for additional funds to continue the work of the task force. If any of you are interested, and in just a minute, I'm going to introduce our new sponsor, which we appreciate them stepping up to support the work of the task force. So with that, want to thank our current sponsors, Care First Health Plan, Valley of the Sun United Way, Satellite Broadcasting and Communications Association, and Khajiit. And then I'd like to welcome our new sponsor, Triad Wireless. Rory Conaway is the CEO. And this morning we have Katrina Parker, who's the business account manager. And so I'd like to introduce Katrina and give her a couple minutes to tell us about Triad Wireless.
Thank you, Steve.
You bet.
And thank you all for allowing us to speak just for a moment. So Triad Wireless, we are an ISP in Arizona. We go as far north as Tucson, as far south as Tucson, as far west as Tonopah, and as far east as Mesa. We do both residential and commercial wireless solutions. We do major projects. We currently have one that bid for the final mile, which you guys know that Paloma has been very, very successful. Within that plan, we had also offered what we call the Education Everywhere package, which is a solution, a wireless solution for students at home to get Wi-Fi at extremely low prices with a low install as well. And we also offer other packages in addition to that. With all of the projects and everything that we've been working on, I know that Mr. Conaway is always on a hunt and always exploring other avenues, because he knows that recently when we had bid in the RDUF auction, unfortunately we didn't win, but it was a great experience to have. And so we've been networking with other businesses to build our infrastructure. So the other thing too is with our wireless internet, we are exploring fiber solutions as well. We've been doing this, he's been doing it, I say, well over 20 years. And like I said, Rory is a very innovative person. He's always thinking outside of the box.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Katrina?
Steve, I'm sorry I'm late. I found myself racing around taking the Zoom call shower so you would see my clean face. Yeah, it's like brushing your teeth before you Zoom. I worked with Katrina and Rory, still am working with them, and they are the real deal. They, I think they're going to be, we'll look back and see them as such an amazing asset by through bringing broadband to rural students in any way they can get it there.
Great, thanks,
Thank you,
Wes.
Wes.
I'm
Hey,
sure.
Katrina, what markets are you in today?
I'm sorry,
sorry.
Jeff.
Yeah, could you just give me an example of the markets you're in today and what speeds you're providing in those markets?
We offer, like, for commercial, anywhere from 25 megabits all the way on up to well over a gig in certain areas. We offer that same speed in certain residential areas. Majority, like our West Valley, we're offering 50 megabits on upwards to 300. Our Tucson, we offer 10 megabits on upwards to 50 megabits. Mesa 300 megabits. Also, we can offer like a 500 megabits, and this is both symmetrical and asymmetrical.
Great. So today you guys are just operating in the Phoenix metro area and the Tucson metro area?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Any other comments or questions for Katrina before we move on?
Well, Jeff, the 5 final mile projects are all rural. I think one of the 5 is now operational. Maybe a second one's coming up.
Great.
That's correct. We have one that's operational, and as I understand it, holes in the ground in towers where we need them for the rest. Katrina can probably tell you, well, Katrina can give you the status of the first 5. The second 5 are still out RFPs, but Katrina can catch you up on the first 5.
Katrina, this is Joy Whiting. Did you win the RFP for the Holbrook School District in
Yes,
Navajo County?
Yes, we did.
No. Okay.
Okay, Katrina, you want to say anything more about the project that Wes was just talking about?
Sure. As far as the Holbrook, where we are at with there is we are almost on the ground running with the install, since the infrastructure has been put in place. The only thing we are waiting on is our fiber provider. We're waiting on an update there. With the Rimrock, we're also almost there with our installs. The only thing that we're waiting on there is we're waiting on information from a company that we are currently absorbing, which is Verde Valley, if I'm not correct. With Pima, it was an electrical issue, which is minor, but it's also major because it puts us past our timeline. So we're waiting on that update there. Paloma has already been done, and installs have already been completed there. So that one, like I said, was completed. Forest Lakes, we are waiting, we are behind because of a supply chain on our equipment. So that's a major backhaul there.
Okay. So how many of the final mile projects are you working on?
Currently 5, and we are working on, we're exploring the next round of the other 5 that's coming up.
Okay. Great.
And
Well,
those RFPs are released, and I wish I could tell you when they're due, but.
They're due March, if I'm not correct, 'cause I was just looking at it. It was March 2nd.
1st, right? Second.
Yeah, March 2nd.
okay, we got to move on. Got lots of stuff to cover today. Thank you, Katrina, and thanks for the sponsorship and support. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Steve.
So we have, I think, a few new people online today. So any of you who may be new, do you want to introduce yourself real quickly?
Steve Metz, CEO of Valley Telecom Group. This is my first time.
Great, thanks, Steve. And we're going to hear from Tim Carter in just a minute, although I don't think he knew that. But anybody else who's new to us for the first time today?
Yeah, Laura Etter, Deputy Director for the Sun Corridor Network.
Oh, great. Okay. Welcome.
I'm
Go ahead.
Emma Linehan with the Arizona Small Business Association.
Oh, good. Yeah, Emma. Emma, do you want to take just 2 minutes to just tell people why you're here? I know I contacted you, and you want to just tell people quickly about your initiative?
Yeah, sure. I have a dog kind of barking in the background, so if you guys hear her, I apologize.
No problem.
I have a program called Elevate IT. We are trying to reach small businesses across the state of Arizona, but specifically in rural Arizona, where we're going to offer them resources for IT services that they don't typically have in their locations. And then so that's tools, IT providers at discounted rates, and any equipment or products that we can get them at discounted rates as well.
Great.
It's elevateitaz.com. I'll put it in the chat.
Great. Thanks, Emma. Glad you could join us today. Anybody else who's new today? Okay, just moving on. Let's see. So Tim Carter, I know you're online. We finally got your email updated, and we've been talking several times about that you're looking for a quote broadband coordinator. You want to talk a little bit about that and what you're looking for? Tim, are you there? You are.
Good morning, Steve. Can you hear me?
Yep, can now.
Okay, thank you. Well, good morning, everybody. It's nice joining you. First of all, let me explain that Yavapai County has completed the middle mile to all of our schools and libraries, and that's been within the last 3 years. We are now working on a $20 million project through the county using ARPA funds for the final mile and to get into homes and businesses. And it is countywide in areas that are unincorporated, areas that are unserved or underserved. The bids actually are going to be finalized today. We have 3 companies in competition for that: Sparklight, Cox, and Altice. And again, our team is meeting today, and we'll probably make a final determination and take our recommendation as a Board of Supervisors here within the next couple of weeks. Many of you probably either know Stan Goligoski or know of him. He unfortunately has left our agency, got a very, very nice raise, and so we certainly understand that. So what we are looking for and have an RFP out also for is a broadband manager. That position actually closes on February 14th. We're looking for a person or a group that will manage that entire county project for us. That person will work directly for me, and we're looking forward to going through that process.
So Tim, can you clarify, you know, you and I had this conversation, clarify whether you're looking for an actual employee or someone or ones to contract with?
Well, I'll be happy to do that. The RFP is designed in such a way that it could either be an individual or it could be an entity, a group. We are not looking to hire an employee. So this is either going to be an independent contractor or it will be a contract with an organization or a group. I really want one person that we're going to be working with on a day-to-day basis. This is a 3-year project. Our Board of Supervisors has set aside already $400,000 in a package. We are anticipating that we're probably going to have to increase that. We don't know exactly what that's going to be. It's going to depend on what the bids say and what our review committee comes up with. But yes, we want that person to really work one-on-one with our agency to coordinate that project. And we also have many cities and towns, we've got about a dozen of them, that also would like to work with the same vendor that we identify, especially when they have projects that are close to unincorporated areas where that vendor could work across city lines and county lines and be very productive.
Okay. Any questions for Tim?
Hi, Tim, this is Joy. Do you have a timeline for that anticipated $400,000 money that's been set aside? 2-year period, 4-year period?
Good morning, Joy. Actually, it is through the term of ARPA, which would go out 3 years. So as of what we have right now, it's about $133,000 a year. That would be salary and benefits. I honestly anticipate that we're probably going to have to exceed that. It really wouldn't surprise me if those bids don't come in substantially higher than that. It's just the market in which we're operating right now. So it would be at least a 3-year commitment, and that might be extended to 4, depending on what happens. And then the reality is that may even merge into further opportunities beyond that, as long as there are funding sources that are available. You know, we're all kind of looking for opportunities to find funds. And so if we could add to that 20 million, we certainly would like to do so.
And can you post a link to that or put the document, the RFP document, in the chat?
Well, I'm driving right now. I won't be able to do that. But what I would suggest everybody just do is go to ycesa.com, or you can simply go to Yavapai County website. And there is a section there on RFPs, and the RFP and a draft contract are attached there for public view. And I've already sent a copy to Steve, and I think he's posted it on your internal site as well. And so absolutely, we're more than happy to share that.
Okay. And I do have Tim's contact information on the email announcement for this meeting and on the meeting webpage. And when I send out the updates following the meeting, that will also be included there. Okay.
Steve, this is Jeff. I was just going to say one thing that I've had a chance to work with this group extensively in Yavapai County. They are very good. They're ahead of the game. They have a great program. Whoever takes this job is you know, it's like taking over on a great football team where all they need is one last piece. And I think it's an important piece, like a quarterback. But ultimately, everybody in the county's bought into the program. They have dedicated quite a bit of ARPA funding to this, and they have buy-in from their various communities. So this is a great opportunity if somebody's looking at this. Plus, if you get the chance to live in Prescott, which is a heck of a nice place. So I hope somebody applies, and I hope you guys get this done quickly.
So Tim, would people
Thank you, Jeff. We appreciate the nice comments. It's actually about a $30 million project if all the cities and towns are able to join us, and we're certainly going to work hard to allow that to happen if they're willing to do so.
Tim, would that person have to live in Prescott, or can they work remotely?
Well, obviously, we would like that person to be located in Yavapai County, in the central Prescott area if possible. We know they're going to have to be here on the ground probably at least 20 to 25 hours a week. So if somebody wanted to live out of Yavapai County, there would be no restriction against that. And there's a lot of work, as we all know, that we can do on the phone and by Zoom and online. But our folks here are used to seeing our bright and smiling face. And so we certainly would want a significant presence within the county.
Okay.
Hey, Steve, can I interrupt one last time before I have to go ruin somebody else's Zoom meeting?
Sure, Wes.
Seems like a lifetime ago, this is exactly what we had in mind for someone to do with the Final Mile project. So I am beyond gratified that we have a major county in Arizona, big rural footprint, and they're creating Final Mile solutions for their families. I couldn't ask for more. This has been exactly what we'd hoped for. Now I've got to thank you, everybody. Thanks, Tim. I got to take my smiling face to somebody else.
Thanks, Wes. Good to see you.
Bye, y'all.
Smiling and clean face, Wes.
You bet. And I brush my teeth.
Well, we knew that.
Well,
Okay.
thank you, Wes. We appreciate those kind comments. The Arizona Rural School Association has always been a great partner with YCESA, and that's going to continue. And what I think everybody needs to know is that we need to continue to support ARSA's Final Mile project, because they're doing great work as well. We all have, I think, the same end game that we're working on. And everything we can do to push the ball down the field, that's what we should be doing. So thank you all.
Okay. Well, Tim, thanks for joining us. Hopefully we'll see you regularly now.
I will try my very best.
Sounds great. Well, it's really exciting. I mean, to see what's happening in rural Arizona is just pretty phenomenal. So great, Tim. Thank you. And so, Cindy, do you want to make a quick announcement about are you there? Yeah, maybe.
Yes,
Yep.
yes, I'm here.
So Cindy, you want to just say some thank yous?
Yes, I do. Janet Major and Karen Ziegler both committed funds for me to support me going to the Digital Inclusion Alliance National Conference. So I really, really appreciate it. Thank you. Cards on the way.
Yeah. So just shows you the power of our task force. So Karen and Janet, thanks for stepping up. Okay, so I want to move on. Rather than our usual updates, of course, you're going to hear from Jeff in just a little while about the state plan, and he can include his updates, any other updates during that presentation. Mala or Holly, or do you guys have any quick updates that you need to provide?
Jeff, Steve, I'll go first, and Holly, please feel free to jump in and add anything if you need to. At ECF extension, we have Shelby has filed to FCC requesting the following areas, the 5 different points, extending ECF to June, extending beyond June 30th, 2022, extending the service delivery deadline because of so many issues, especially issues of supply chain. Requesting a third funding window to be open as quickly as possible. Requesting an extension of the gift rule to coincide with the extension of the service delivery deadline. Requesting reconsideration of the record keeping for libraries because that's been a big pain for libraries to keep those records for 10 years. And I've spoken before about this, so I'm not going to go into details about it. It's just hard for libraries to keep those records. And to also waive the cost allocation rule in the E-rate program. Currently, if they're applying for anything beyond the library building or the school building, except of course a parking lot, they have to cost allocate out. But during the pandemic, they're requesting that this be waived so that the neighborhood can also benefit from the ECS program. So those are the issues that Shelby and ALA and others have submitted to FCC. EBB and ACP transition, also there's been some documents released. They said that all those who had applied till December 31st will transition to the new program, ACP program, and with the same monthly benefits of $50 until March 1st of 2022. It's only until March 1st of 2022. After that, it will change to $30 a month, except if you're in a tribal area, and it would continue to be $75. You don't need to do anything for the transition. It will happen automatically. And if any of the recipients of service are concerned about it, they need to contact their local service provider, who will give them whatever packet fits that $30 bill. So that's the transition. There's also a lot of activity as far as the bidding portal goes. Thanks to those who sent me comments. I will be incorporating those comments through ALA's E-rate task force. In a nutshell, and very quickly, there's nothing new in what I heard, except that I'm so happy that those who sent me comments are agreeing with the fact that this is not a good idea. It takes the bidding process away from the local procurement officials, some of whom are really well qualified to do the job, whereas USAC, it's just going to expand their workload. They're not going to have the expertise to do it. There are more than 45,000 contracts, E-rate contracts that have to be looked at. This is going to cause unnecessary delays. It's also going to force the timeline on local procurement, and that's going to be a big pain, especially for state master contracts, which begin the process. RFP process begins a year before the expiration of the current contract. It's also going to put a lot of burden on the smaller applicants who, as it is, are having trouble with the E-rate portal. To have another bidding portal and to have them to understand how that works, it's going to put a burden not only on them, but all of our state coordinators who are helping them through their application process. Back to you, Steve, and if anyone has any questions, I'm happy to answer. It has been a busy week this week.
Okay, we need to move on. We got a lot to cover today. So I see Rory, I see you're online. Are you still in Hawaii?
No, actually, I got back Saturday morning and
Well,
then promptly flew out to Chicago for a day. So but I'm
well,
back.
we did thank you earlier. I don't know if you were online at the time.
I
but
was
we did
not. I'm sorry.
Well, we did get an update from Katrina, so we're good.
She's my right hand right there, let me tell you.
Good. Well, you're doing some great stuff, so glad to have you on board.
Thank you.
Okay, so moving on, just quickly. So Janet, Janet, are you online? Don't think so. So Department of Ed, you guys have anything besides going to be talking about the funding issue a little later? Anything else that's pressing at the moment?
I'll just share that in case you've seen emails from me or you see my new Zoom name, I did get married. So my new name is Sophia Braham, and it is reflected in my email at ADE. Kind of a sudden change, but a good one. So I just wanted to share that, but I will save anything else for when we're sharing later.
Sounds great. Congrats.
Thank you.
Yeah, Kelly, did you have anything that you needed to do real quickly, please?
No, not for me this morning. Thanks, Steve.
Okay, Leah, I don't know if you're online. We did have a great meeting with Leah last week to talk about the Arizona Universal Service Fund. Anybody want to do a quickie update about that meeting? Don't everybody, Heather, were you going to say something? No. Okay, well, we had a good meeting. We shared, we discussed a number of different options. The purpose of the meeting was to look at what kinds of things about the Arizona Universal Service Fund, what it is, how it operates, and then also some discussion about what are some options if it gets continued. So I don't want to take more time today because we have we want to make sure we have plenty of time for our presentations. And Derek, I'm going to defer you right now because you're going to be, I assume you're going to want to contribute to the discussion about the final mile, the middle mile strategic plan. So if that's okay with you.
Yeah, that's fine, Steve.
Okay, so with that, we're going to move on to Cindy. Did you have anything that you needed to talk about quickly regarding digital inclusion? Cindy, Nicole.
Sorry, yeah, nothing urgent.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, moving on then. So we have two important things to talk about today. One, we've been waiting for quite a long time and are very excited that the Arizona statewide broadband middle mile strategic plan is done and is now official and public. And who would know that more than anybody is our own Jeff Sabatka, State Broadband Manager with the Commerce Authority. So with that, Jeff, I'm going to turn it over to you to kind of give us an update.
Great. Thanks, Steve. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here real quick.
Okay, I'll stop sharing.
Let's see.
There you go.
All right, are you all seeing this?
Yep.
Okay, good stuff. I've had some issues with projection mode or whatever recently, so I'm just going to flip through this. So hopefully that the viewing will be okay. For those of you who are not aware, we developed a middle mile strategic plan over the last, 6 months. This is not a replacement for the 2018 plan. This is more or less an addendum to that plan, dealing with specifically the middle mile service, basically service from our metro areas such as Phoenix out to our rural areas to connect them, to provide a lot of different things, backhaul most notably. This is something that we engaged with KPMG, a lot of stakeholders. Many of you have had a chance to speak with as part of this. We wanted to make sure we get a lot of different voices and focus in on really where we need to be from a community standpoint, but most importantly, to look at the data. You know, a lot of times people will look at different communities and make assumptions. As you all know, the mapping is less than perfect, and we're certainly working on some plans for that. But this is something that will provide infrastructure for the state of Arizona moving forward. Many of you are familiar with the broadband grant that closed on Monday, the $100 million grant. There are a lot of great carriers that would love to serve some of our rural communities and quite frankly, some of our rural cities that are underserved, but they lack sufficient middle mile connectivity. And this is really designed to address that. We don't have enough time to do too much of a deep dive, so I'm going to flip around here a little bit and try to answer some questions here at the end. All right. So what were our goals? The goals were really to expand this middle mile connectivity to our unserved and underserved areas throughout the state, to do it in a cost-effective way that makes sense. Yes, we have a lot of money, but no, we can't throw money at every single project. I will tell you from our grant, it was incredibly oversubscribed and will be incredibly, very, very competitive. We want to make sure that our communities identify the middle mile fiber that they can leverage and help provide it if they're lacking. Identify a governance structure to apply to this, to go ahead and go out and get this federal money and plug it into the program. And then identify other opportunities to access rural internet, fast, reliable, and affordable. And then to build up the capacity for the use of the technology for additional purposes for home and at school. We want to look at something that's going to be built that's not going to be outdated in a couple of years. There's a lot of new technology coming down the pipeline. In the short term, we're working with things like ITS technology, which is the intelligent transportation systems along our highways. If you spend time driving around the Phoenix area, you know the signs with the funny sayings and different things, but also help you get rerouted in the event of a wrong way driver or bad weather. We'd like to have that sort of technology throughout the state. Long term, there's a reason that that Facebook changed its name to Meta. The metaverse and what's coming with that is going to be a whole new level of bandwidth requirement at the individual household level. So our hope is to build a network. Our plan is to build a network that is scalable, either ourselves or through our partners, that will have long-term implications. So our actionable recommendations, one of the things that we looked at were the number of households that were served and unserved. One of the big takeaways from this project was that you have 80% of our unserved and underserved households can be served within 5 miles of our state and interstate highways. So basically look to either side of the highway, 80%. That's a big number, and that's an ability to get that statewide, not just in certain corridors. So we're really excited about the opportunity to expand that. Here's just some basic statistics regarding the served and underserved in our state, and some of the highways that we looked at, specifically I-10, I-17, and I-19. 17 and 19 are already under development, and I-40 to be our most critical interstate highways. Those represent about 90% of the overall potential along our interstate highways. All right. Why invest in middle mile? Again, you're looking at a huge bang for our buck. There's a lot of different ways to approach broadband development. Different states are doing different things. We've always sort of been on the side of working with our private sector providers, and that's certainly something we're going to continue to do. I think we've done that with our $100 million grant that sits out today, future grants. But there is a case to be made for the state to invest in infrastructure around the state to help spur that. I want to be clear that we at the state have no intention and no desire to become an ISP. There are some great ISPs around the state. I know better than anybody how complicated that business is and how costly that business is moving forward. The objective is to really look at building infrastructure that will support some of our great ISPs from around the state. Another thing that we talked about, and I mentioned earlier, is future-proofing this network. I think we all know that fiber, and particularly fiber in the ground, is the most important thing to do. We work closely with the Sun Corridor Network and Derek and his team to really take a look at where and why our universities connect to make sure that the Sun Corridor Network not only has fiber today, but has the needs as our university system expands. I think that we're all seeing lots of our branch campuses from our major universities, and that's a good thing. So kids can stay in their communities, not take on a lot of debt, and be served. So working with the Sun Corridor Network is a key partner. ADOT is another key partner in what we're trying to do here. Department of Education, all have very unique but robust and growing broadband needs. And the intent here is to build a state-of-the-art backbone for Arizona, something that, again, will serve us today and into the future. All right, so here's our evaluation criteria. We looked at all these highways and we take a hard look from a data-driven perspective of why would the state invest in one highway versus another. And we have several criteria, and this is something that we tried to really stick to be objective here. Number one is, are underserved and unserved households covered per dollar of public investment? There are a lot of folks that need service around the state. What we found is that there are some clusters that really need connectivity that we can spend a reasonable amount of money and connect pretty quickly. So we did take a hard look at that. We also looked at the lack of existing fiber presence or capacity. In some cases, you had communities that have fiber capacity, have fiber into the community, but quite honestly, when you really look at what's left, there's not a whole lot. So just having fiber into a community wasn't important. That was our second most important criteria. Our goal, and this is a national goal, is to have over 100 megabit downloads to every address. This is an NTIA goal that's built into the grants. This is something that they required of us in our grant. You know, my personal view is we need to shoot for a gig, but right now 100 megabits is really where we're at, particularly in these rural areas, and we're going to go up from there. Population centers covered, points of presence addressed. Is this just serving one city? Is this serving multiple cities on the route? There are certain highways that pick up quite a bit of our smaller cities and towns. And then lastly, for 15 points also, the public sector agencies and tribal nations interested in the project. We spent a lot of time working with Christine Firethunder at the governor's office and our tribes, talking about what the tribes' needs are. I will tell you that our tribes are investing in broadband. If you've ever had any chance to spend any time with the folks in the Gila River Indian community, that is a very advanced group. They've received some USDA grants and they're building, and they're looking to continue to build. One of the interesting tidbits I found out last week, which is amazing, is that the Navajo Nation has approved $208 million for broadband. Think about that. Navajo Nation is serious. We need to help the Navajo Nation connect. Our public sector agencies are groups like ADOT, DPS, which operates a system of towers around the state, and individual offices like DES that needs to be able to connect, but unfortunately can't always do that. We've got several appendixes in this, so if you have questions about how we came to these conclusions and what we have, it gives you an idea of exactly where the data comes from, which I think is important. And you're welcome to do more of a deep dive into that as well. Here are some of our observations regarding our interstates. Let's start with 17 and 19, which are underway. If you haven't had a chance, I don't know, maybe Mark can post the ADOT video that we went out in our press release. It's pretty neat. They did a drone flyover of the work that's being done on 17 today. If you've driven that route between Phoenix and Flagstaff, you know how close to the mountains it gets and how important it is. And that's going to be done by the end of the year. It's I-17. I-19 Tucson to the Mexican border in Nogales also underway. And these were our top two scoring routes right off the bat. So we felt like number one has validated our decision to do it, moving forward. I-40 is a little different because I-40, we broke up into two different segments. I-40 West and I-40 East. I-40 West is Flagstaff west to Kingman and to the border, potentially even connecting up towards Vegas. I-40 East is connecting towards New Mexico along the Holbrook and connecting with the Hopi tribe and others. And so they were scored differently because, again, I-40 is an incredibly complex, very expensive project that also requires a sign off from the Navajo Nation on the eastern portion. I-10, we looked at I-10 statewide, but we pulled out the Phoenix and Tucson metros. Obviously, that's going to skew the results a little bit. So we wanted to make sure that we looked at the rural segments of I-10, and that scored quite well also. And then I-8, which is a route that we all take to get to Yuma and to San Diego, and that's the fourth one that we looked at. Here's how the scoring came down for the various highways, if you get a chance. As you can tell, 17 and 19 did quite well. I-40 West was the best of the other routes, with I-40 East pretty close, and then I-10 was next, and then I-8 trailing. So again, they all scored well, but again, this gives us an idea of what we can prioritize and why, and there are different criteria for that. Here are the recommendations in some evaluation of each one of these corridors. If you get a chance to read through them in more detail, it gives you an idea of not only how much need is, but how much public sector and tribal need is as well. We looked at our state highways here, particularly up and down some of our rural areas. As you can see, US 60 again goes through the Phoenix area, but unfortunately, or I should say, fortunately, we've pulled out the Phoenix area from the I-60 data. So again, we're looking at rural 60, if you're taking it towards the White Mountains, for example, or west out of Phoenix towards Wickenburg and some of the communities there. I-95 is another one that's a really interesting one because of the route that it takes in our state, north-south. I believe it actually will go all the way to Canada if you want to follow that. And then Highway 89 and Highway 191, which is another important north-south route that goes through the Navajo Nation up towards the northern part of the state. All right, here's how the state routes scored, just to give you some perspective. Highway 69 did quite well, 60 as well, and all the way down. So again, if you have questions about the data, there are appendixes that you can look at and get a pretty good idea of what we're trying to do. All right. So the recommendations of the plan were to implement priority interstate corridors, looking at the data specifically and looking potentially at development along these corridors. Here's an idea of why we believe that. If you look within the red here, that's where my eyes are leaving me here. But one important thing is that it creates a multiplier effect, and we want to make sure that rather than crowding out private sector investment, it encourages private sector investment. We want smaller carriers to set up shop in some of these smaller communities that aren't served, and we want our existing carriers to expand their bandwidth options and to grow into some of the new areas because they have the available backhaul to them. Getting back to the kind of how we did this, we did a lot of due diligence. We worked with the carriers themselves. We had meetings to understand their networks, what their goals were, what their timelines are. There are some great carriers that have interesting plans, but let's be honest, 3 to 5 years is not cutting it. We need action right now, and we're looking at this from an immediate action standpoint because of the nature of the funding that we're receiving. We had a lot of stakeholder consultation, not just with the communities, but with different interest groups around the state that are involved with broadband, as well as ADOT. We've looked at several different categories, if you will, state-led corridors. This is something where the ACA is working with ADOT to lead the procurement process. This is very similar to what we're doing on I-17 and I-19. In a state-led corridor, this is something where the state would own the asset, the conduit with fiber specifically for purposes such as ADOT, an abundant fiber for the Sun Corridor network to go and build out for our state universities. And we want to establish points of presence in all the major population centers. Because we're building and owning it, we have the ability to pick and choose where we go. I think in the past, some of these routes just cut straight through the state and don't really stop anywhere. In a state-owned, state-led corridor, this is something we can do. Private sector and non-partnering area agency-initiated corridors. These are where we're working directly with carriers along these routes, whether through subsidies and helping them with ADOT and tribal nations to go ahead and make these corridors built effectively and contributing more from a financial standpoint. Again, you can go through and look at each one of these. There are approaches to each one of these developments: I-40 West, I-40 East, I-10, which will give you an idea of really what we're trying to do here. We're excited about the opportunity. We've never seen financial money like this in the state, and I think it's important that with this federal funding, we're really prudent about what we do. It's data-driven, but also that we spend it on the areas that need to be spent on. There are some really great ideas out there, but building infrastructure is something we know has long-term value and will benefit the state. One of the ideas that has come up with this in terms of governance and how we continue to work with the state broadband office. There were recommendations to expand that, which I'm absolutely in favor of. If you're not aware, we're hiring a assistant state broadband director. And if you're interested, that's something that you should definitely get your application in. Establishing roles for our partnering agencies. I've mentioned Suncorder and ADOT and others. These are groups that we work with every day, and we'll continue to do it. Another thing that's new is because we have such a elaborate network that potentially can be built here, is the role of a neutral third party host to help monetize this. Every dollar that we get out of this networks is something we can put into rural broadband and to oversee the carrier relations and others. And that's just something that's going to have to be done through an RFP, probably in the next month to 2 months. We've got some interested parties. We've got some internal interested parties, and may the best plan win. So this is something that we're going to see in the next couple months. And we at the state are excited to read these. So again, as I mentioned earlier, there's a heck of a lot of data here. If you want to go into the appendix, different route maps, looking at each one of these areas, criteria, maps, data, and you're welcome to dig in and give you an idea of points of presence covered. For example, I-10 obviously has the big winner there. So from a broadband perspective, this is an incredibly exciting thing. At times it can be a bit exhausting just based on the sheer number of opportunities we have, but that's why we're bringing in different folks to help us, to continue to help us on it. I can't stress enough the great impact and input that we've received from this group. Steve and Mark and others have been here from the very beginning. And our hope is to make sure that this is something that lasts, that 20 years from now, when we're all looking back at this, we can say, heck, we did this. As somebody who grew up in the Phoenix area, I remember when they were building the 51 freeway. I remember when I moved back from Dallas, the 101 was built, and I was just amazed at the ability to get around town. I think this is something, if we do this correctly, you will have the ability to have the same level of connectivity and opportunity in rural Arizona as we do in Maricopa County. And that's my goal, is to serve the individual citizen, the small business, our education institutions. And this is the first step, big first step to doing it. This is the infrastructure that will do it. We're going to continue to work with our carrier partners and get this built out. So as I mentioned, the $100 million grant, very oversubscribed, but some great plans. I think that this is an exciting year for us. The IIJA funding, the infrastructure bill funding, is going to come in several waves. We expect to have 1 to 2 more grants this year and have a lot of state investment. So this is an exciting time to be a part of this, and I appreciate your time for hearing me out. And if there's any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
So before we go to any questions for Jeff, I have a couple of things. First of all, Karen Ziegler, I believe you're still online. Karen was the principal author when she was with the state in developing the 2018 plan. And so I just wanted to say, Karen, thank you for the work that you did that laid a lot of the groundwork for this plan. I don't know if you have anything you want to add.
No, thank you, Steve. I really appreciate that. But there was a lot of people that sat around that table and helped with that report. Mylan was part of it. John Lucas was part of it. The folks from Commerce Authority, Janet, I think you were part of it. So I'm glad to see that there's expansion of what our thoughts were back in 2018. And yeah, I think this is a really good report. I'll hold my question, but Jeff, I thought maybe you could talk a little bit about how this is going to impact grant or funding decisions going forward.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, this is something where it's going to provide connectivity. And I should start by saying, Karen, we actually looked at with our consultants, do we need to rewrite the entire plan? And the unanimous answer was no. The work that was done in 2018 was an incredible foundation. We use that with a lot of our federal partners, and everybody seems very happy with that. So this is, as Stephen mentioned, this is an addendum to that plan. As far as moving forward, yeah, I mean, it's something that we probably should take a look at as far as connecting to this network. We want to make sure that we monetize it in the best way possible. But, I think that, when you build connectivity into these communities, abundant, robust, inexpensive connectivity, potentially with 2 to 3 or more options for a middle mile, the cost to provide backhaul service goes down quite measurably. Our hope is that this will draw multiple carriers into our markets, and I think we're seeing that already. I had a great meeting with Google Fiber on Friday, and they're very interested in Arizona, and they're one of several great companies. So we need to provide the infrastructure. So if a company like Google Fiber decides they want to set up shop in an area outside of Maricopa County, that they have the ability to get to Maricopa County. We also have the ability to set was it Triad Wireless that we heard about earlier, that they have the ability to get from some of our rural communities back to Maricopa County to the data center. So the infrastructure is being built to help them. As far as what we do with grants moving forward, I'm knee deep in this one, so I'm just going to focus on this one for now.
Fair enough.
So just moving on, because we do have a couple of other things to cover this morning. But Derek, you're online. And so Derek is a key component in the Sun Corridor Network, is a key component of this plan. So Derek, a couple of things. First of all, it looks like you have some more staff finally. And secondly, you're already in the throes of implementation of some of this. So any comments you want to add?
I don't think I have a lot to add. Thanks, Steve. Jeff covered the plan really well. Obviously, we're excited to be a partner at the table, helping make this connectivity happen for Arizona and for educators and students in particular. So
Derek, just quickly to clarify a little bit. So Jeff talked about connectivity for the universities, but you're doing a lot more than just the universities now. You're connecting some of the.
Oh, absolutely. State community colleges, K-12s, libraries, municipalities, a diverse range of public sector needs are served by the Sun Corridor Network with a focus on education. Right? We're founded by the universities. We build to their sites in particular, but
yeah, Steve, I was going to mention that having spent 10 years in Dallas and my time with AT&T, one thing I learned was that the LEARN network in Texas and the Scenic network in California are just monsters. They're huge, and they do a lot more than their universities, and they have grown in their role. And one of the conversations I've had with Derek and with Lev and others is we need the Sun Corridor network to get a lot bigger. We need the Sun Corridor network involved in a lot of different things. Because they provide that education expertise, and you just have to look east and west to see the potential for what we can do. Do I think we'll get that big? No. That being said, we can get a lot bigger than we are right now. So we're just happy to have them on board.
Well, it's been consistent. When we did our report back in November 2020, we were very clear that we felt that the Sun Corridor network definitely needed to be expanded and to serve more than just the universities, and possibly even being a true statewide network for libraries, telemedicine, and so forth. Yeah. And so there's a lot of opportunity there. I don't know, Derek, if you want to comment on that at this point, but.
I would just say that Learn in Texas and Scenic in California are, overnight successes, 25 and 30 years in the making. And we will be that big, but probably, we got 20 years to go, maybe 15 if we're aggressive. So
No, we're going to do that a lot sooner.
Let's hope.
We're going to do that a lot sooner. I mean, you're just gangbusters since you came full time with the Sun Corridor. You've just been gangbusters.
Arizona's full of a lot of great partners and a lot of people who just want to roll up our sleeves and get it done. So it's been fun.
Okay, so just quickly, because we do have another quick presentation this morning, any other quick questions or comments for Jeff, Derek, or anybody?
Hey, Steve, this is Kirk. I have a quick one from the dumb guy's perspective. Jeff, back to your Google Fiber meeting. I remember when we had huge plans in Tempe with Google Fiber, and I'm not really sure why that fell apart. Can you speak to how now our new aggressive approach in broadband would help providers that big help our economic situation in this space?
Well, I mean, Kirk, there's a couple things. You're talking about Maricopa County. Obviously competition in Maricopa County is one thing. And quite honestly, we really didn't talk about Maricopa County. I think by and large, Maricopa County is pretty well served. We're certainly welcome anyone who wants to come in here and spend their capital and do that. But the focus of the meeting was in our rural areas. We have several cities, for lack of a better word, throughout Arizona. And I don't want to get into specifics here, that are chronically underserved. And if you look at the way Google Fiber has evolved from the early days, I believe it was Kansas City and Austin and others, Salt Lake City, they're actually expanding into some rural areas right now, and they're dipping their toe in the water. So what we want to do is we want to help provide that backhaul infrastructure from some of these rural cities for a Google Fiber or a WAN rack or an Allo or a Zona Wired or any of these great companies that are coming to Arizona, so they have the ability to get from rural cities back to Phoenix. Are they looking at small towns of 2,000 people? No, they're not. I mean, you could probably imagine what they're looking at right now, but they're a great company, and there are several great companies. We just want to provide the backhaul infrastructure for them to get to Phoenix.
I understand. Thank you.
Okay, we need to move on because we do have another presentation. I think it can be fairly short. Excuse me, but many of you probably know about the spending cap that's going to significantly impact education and education funding here in the state. So we have three people who are going to talk about that today. One is our own John Kelly, who's been with us for, I don't know how many years, John, 20 years, 25 years. We've been working with you.
I cannot count that high anymore.
John's going to use a payphone as his avatar when he checks
in. And then also Sophia and Sophia's new moniker, and also Joy Whiting, who has been a regular participant in this task force, who is a regional school superintendent. So John, I'm going to turn it over to you first.
Well, thank you, Steve. It's a tough transition to go from the culmination of so many months, if not years of work on the broadband plan to this issue. It's going from the sublime to the ridiculous. So just put it in context. What's going on right now is that our education, K-12 education system, in particular, the traditional school districts are facing what I would call their Thelma and Louise moment. If you go to the last scene of that movie where they're hurtling headlong toward the cliff, this is what the state of Arizona is facing. And unlike the pandemic from 2 years ago that brought this group first together, this is a self-inflicted wound that the state is working on. And the short version of it is, unless the legislature acts by March 1 to increase and override the constitutional aggregate expenditure limit on school district funding, then every school district has to revise downward their budget for the last 2 months and going forward last 2 months of this school year, and then going forward until the legislature acts. The impact on that, I'll let Sophia and Joy talk to the impact, but it's considerable, it's dramatic. It will be devastating in various ways, in various places to varying degrees, but all bad. And it's not because we don't have the money. The money's already been appropriated. It's money that's been allocated by the legislature. When the legislature reauthorized Prop 301, it made that spending increase that was originally voter approved in 2000, subject to the constitutional aggregate expenditure limit. The governor's 20 by 20 pay raises for educators also is subject to the constitutional expenditure limit. And the issue now, and the political challenge right now, is that when the voters approved Prop 208, which was a surcharge on individual income taxes for those single taxpayers making more than $250,000 or married taxpayers making over $500,000, that has been subject to court review, and a judge determined last year that that spending is also subject to the constitutional expenditure limit. There is a hearing taking place in Maricopa Superior Court today. It's an update hearing. I don't think there will be any news out of the hearing other than no news, to ask whether that 208 funding, or how much that 208 funding would affect the constitutional expenditure limit. The legislature's decided to wait for clarification from the court because they don't want anything that they do, including overriding the current limit, to have an impact on that court decision. So at this point, obviously schools are concerned, families are concerned, businesses are concerned. And so the whole concept of this, bringing this to your attention, is that for the 60 or so participants on this call, you've got your own network, people that you talk to, that you care about. They need to understand this problem, and they need to make sure their legislators want to come forward with a quick, expeditious, and clean solution to this problem. February is only a 28-day month. We've only got 3 weeks for the legislature to act, and there has been no action so far. The legislature could do this in a day, but for the moment, they haven't made any steps in that direction.
I want to be fair, John, there are bills to fix this. They just haven't gone anywhere. They exist.
Well, not
They're
from
just not
the voting majority of the legislature. Right.
But they exist, just not in
They
voting
do
majority.
exist. They do exist. That's correct.
So John, are there some people in the legislature who are really the roadblock to this? I don't know if you want to get into that or not, but do you have any comments about that?
I'm not going to call out individuals. It's an institutional prerogative that the majority, in particular, the majority in the House, has decided they need to wait for clarification. And this is more legal strategy. It's an arcane legal strategy. I don't know if there are any lawyers in the room that have trial court experience. I do not. I'm not an attorney, so I don't understand the impact of this. It seems fairly clear that that Prop 208 would have an impact. We don't know exactly how much of an impact, but frankly, before you even get to 208, you've got a problem. The issue, I think, the bigger issue is, are we going to fix this problem for another year? Or are we going to fix it for 20 years? Or are we going to make this limit go away? It's a product of a constitutional amendment from 1980. And the other question is, are legislators going to try to leverage this situation to get other things enacted, like expanded empowerment scholarships or other kinds of things, curriculum limits? There's so many issues right now being proposed to mandate kind of educational structure that it's a very challenging political environment. So there's too many targets to name, Steve, but it's a difficult environment.
Okay. So Sophia, do you want to add anything?
Nope, I am just showing what some of our largest school districts will lose. $12 million for Flagstaff, that's a big number. It's a lot of money to lose in the last 2 months, but I'm happy to cede time to Joy Whiting, who can talk about in her area what's at stake.
Okay, and Joy and Tim, you're also, if you're still online, you may want to jump in also. But Joy, you want to go ahead, please?
Yeah, I just want to say that I feel this is really a political tug of war standoff, if you will. And whenever the county school superintendents get together, the role of the county school superintendents by statute is mostly fiscal. And we're sort of the conduit between the state funds to the local school districts. And so personally, and I'm sure Tim might agree, we feel pinched. What are we supposed to do? By statute, there's not much we can do, because if there's not money in the county treasuries to disperse to the schools, what can you do? But yet we're the entity that distributes the paychecks to the teachers, the money to the vendors, and things like that. So it's a difficult position to be in. But when we get together as county school superintendents in our association meetings, we're not a politically polarized group. We generally have the best interests of the kids at heart. And that's how we stand. We don't usually get polarized at all. And so I just feel like that this is a situation that, again, the schools are being stuck between a rock and a hard place. And because of all of the shutdowns that have happened because of COVID in the last couple of years, it just feels more risky for the students to have any more danger of not being able to be educated in the format that they need to be educated in, and have teachers feel secure. Tim had mentioned at our last legislator meeting that, again, some of the ramifications is what this does is our state just looks bad. Teachers from other states or individuals who live in state being educated, they don't want to join the forces of becoming a teacher or joining into the education space. And so we're already in shortages of paraprofessionals and teachers and administrators and counselors. And this just is another position that we're being put in that doesn't look good. So again, sort of what was already spoken to, if you have any way of influencing your legislatures in your districts to vote to just take care of this. Yes, there are bills that could fix it permanently. Will they be hurting committees and move forward? Who knows? But we have to fix this immediately right now before we can finish out the school year. And the money is there. We just don't want kids to suffer anymore. And I think that's what could happen if the schools have to shut down. And I don't know if Tim has any more to add to that.
Yeah, Tim, do you have anything else you want to add? I don't know if he's still online. So I want to say one thing. We have, as an organization, I should say as a collaboration, have not taken any positions on any kinds of issues like this. And the only reason that I felt justified, I mean, obviously, I would say that probably 90 to 100% of people on this call today would be concerned about education funding. But in particular, as you can see with all these budget cuts, what could be the implications for technology in terms of priorities and what the school districts are going to be able to support when they are going to have so many other kinds of issues and needs. And I don't know, Sophia, Joy, if you're hearing any rumblings about that at this point, or that's just too specific right now.
I think that's a valid concern.
Because even when COVID happened, we still had technology to use. We still had the money to pay for technology. We still had the money to pay the teachers to try to use technology from home. This is a situation where the money's not there to even keep going. So yes, the technology couldn't even be used to try to educate kids from home. So yes, it severely affects the technology space. When there's just no money, you can't continue to pay your bills.
Okay. Any
And
other?
the last thing I say,
also-
go ahead.
Go ahead, John.
Sharika. Yeah. No, Sharika, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I'm assuming there's also conversations around positions being cut. So then that would definitely have a direct impact on
Absolutely.
all of that technology, extracurriculars, all those things that make a well-rounded child, I think would be impacted as well.
Especially when we're talking about some of the more rural communities, we are talking about jobs, unfortunately, yes. Lots of jobs.
Yeah, Sophia's put up slides of some of the larger school districts and how they're affected because the dollar amount is so big. But I have so many very, very small school districts in Apache County because we are so rural. I mean, that's the entire school. The funding in those kind of schools is everything. They don't have the resources to pick back up and do anything. It shuts down the whole school immediately.
John, you had,
One last point is that it requires a 2/3 vote of both houses of the legislature. So this has to be a bipartisan solution. You're gonna have to get Republicans and Democrats on board. And so this doesn't, that's why I think those of us that are advocates for the public education system here are asking for a clean solution, not a solution that has all kinds of other policy issues attached to it.
so John, do we have a bill yet, or bills that
No.
people should be supporting at this point?
No, there are bills introduced, but what's going to happen is the speaker or the Senate president will probably come up with some proposal. But again, they haven't even convened discussions. They may have an idea in their head about what they want to do, but I haven't been a party to any of the bill writing of that sort. So it'll appear suddenly and it'll move quickly as soon as there's some clarity from the courts.
John, do you think it's dependent on the court hearings on the Prop 208? And that is the clincher of when they're going to even consider listening to.
Well, that's what they say. That's what they say.
Okay, any other questions or comments before we end the meeting for today? Go ahead, Sophia.
Say, if anyone is interested, she will be, this will be brought up. Superintendent Hoffman is giving her State of Education tomorrow in the Senate Education Committee, and you can watch it live streamed online, live or after she's completed it.
Sophia, do we have a link, a direct link for that?
I
anywhere?
can put a link in the chat to the Senate's live stream. You'll just have to wait until.
No, that's fine. That would help. And Mark, are you on there? I put a question in there about the AZ Tech Council's Public Policy Committee going through all the bills right now and strategies. Has this come up in that yet, Mark?
Yeah, absolutely. The committee is of the opinion that we would be, acting on this in favor of a solution, but I don't think that solution has emerged. But yeah, the Tech Council will lobby. Unlike this group, which actually has a 501c3, Steve, we can't lobby directly.
Exactly.
The Tech Council will, absolutely.
Mark, thank you so much for saying that. Kirk, this is Carla, Vice President of the Arizona Technology Council here in Southern Arizona. And Mark beat me, I was typing my message, but absolutely, we'll make sure to bring it up again. And as Mark mentioned, we are 100% in support of this.
And as they discussed, there's a lot of talk, but right now the Senate president or the speaker needs to kind of pull things together. I wonder if we have any influence there with the Yavapai County situation and the current president and everything that's going on with the education system in Yavapai County. John, just a thought there for some potential squeezing strategy.
President Fan is very aware of the situation. When we talked to her last fall about it, she said, yeah, she was fully supportive of the solution. So she's amenable. The issue is this other court issue. And she also has challenged people to think about this solution in other ways than just a simple override. Is there something we need to do in terms of the school finance formula that fundamentally changes the cost structure because of the fact in 1980, we didn't have the internet, we didn't have broadband, we didn't have digital devices, we didn't have a lot of different things. And the entire labor market associated with educators and frankly, support staff has changed. So the concept of tying expenditures on K-12 to the 1980 amount plus inflation plus student count is challenging. It's difficult. So with that, I'll leave you to the debate.
Okay, thanks, John. And
Thanks,
I
John.
think anybody else have any quick questions or comments before we end for today? Okay, well, thank you all for being here again this morning. Lots of stuff happening, lots of good stuff with broadband. It's pretty exciting for those of us, Mark and myself and Orison and others who have been in this issue about broadband for like 20 years. It's very exciting to see what's happening here in the state. Anyway, if there's nothing else, I will provide the links when I send out the updates from this meeting with the links to all the documents and everything. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing And I'm going to stop recording. And anybody who wants to stay online to Tibbetts, you're welcome to join us.